Hello everyone and welcome back. So today, just getting the garage a little bit tidied up, cleaning up some of the spill here from the pulling the engine out. So I got mostly cleaned up. I put on a little bit more cat litter to absorb some more of the fluid and vacuum it up again. But what I want to do today is a couple things. Kind of getting this engine and transmission prep to go back into the car. One thing is to separate the transmission, the old transmission, from the engine. But then I got the new transmission over there on the floor, so I can get that mounted up. Put a new, well, I will need to put a new fluid filter in the transmission. But the first thing I want to do is pull this exhaust manifold off this side. This is the one where one of the studs broke while I was replacing the Y-pipe a few weeks ago. And I want to get that manifold off first thing, so I'm most curious about that to see how much stud is left there. Maybe I can get some vice grips on it and twist it out. Maybe I'll have to use a bolt extractor or something. But that's the first thing I want to do, is get that manifold off there before doing anything else. Assess the situation and hopefully get that bolt cleaned up. And then we'll get the transmission off from there, get a few other things cleaned up, replace a couple other parts. And maybe tonight I'll have this ready to go back in, although I don't think I'm going to be putting it in the car tonight. So let's get going on that. Oh, and you may be wondering why I'm bundled up here. It's because it is cold outside. It is January now, and let's see if you can see my little thermostat here. It is about 50 in the garage, which is looks like about 10 Celsius. So I got the pellet stove going here. It's starting to warm up and take the edge off, but it's cold. So usually I get bundled up, turn the stove on, and maybe after half an hour or an hour or so, the stove warms up enough where I start to lose my hat and my jacket, and eventually I'm working in a t-shirt when it gets really warm in here. But it's cold, it's January, but fortunately I can warm up the garage and still get some things done out here. Okay, well, true to my luck, this is not only broken off flush, but you can see that it's actually a little bit recessed in there. So that means I'm going to have to probably drill it out, use some kind of a bolt extractor to pull it out. So, you know, it is what it is. So at this point, I'm going to get the transmission off, get this engine up on a stand so I can work on it more easily. Then work on getting that out. Okay, so I have the engine and transmission separated here on the ground, and this is the front wheel drive transmission that I just pulled out of the car. And when I look into the output here, this is where the axle comes off the wood attached to the transmission. Let's see here, can you try and get my light position? Okay, so you can see there. So this actually has the sprocket. You can see the teeth on the outside there that the PTU would attach to for four-wheel drive. So that's pretty interesting because if I go over to my four-wheel drive transmission that I'm about to put in, then you can see it more clearly here because the seal is different. This seal seals against the PTU shaft. And actually I got it kind of dirty in there somehow. Holy smokes. Oh, I bet that's all the cat litter I put down. I guess I'll have to get that cat litter out of there before I install it. But I'm going to be replacing that seal anyhow, so I can clean that out. But you can see the sprocket more easily there, and there's the seal. And then you can see that this housing is right here and there and on the bottom. It's drilled and tapped out for some fasteners to hold that PTU on. Whereas the front wheel drive transmission over here has some holes in the same locations, but they're not drilled for bolts. So, you know, what a bummer. It looks like this transmission internally is the same for front wheel drive or four wheel drive, And if this one, let's see, on this surface was machined, and if this was drilled, that was drilled, this is, well, they're all drilled, but tapped, threaded, then I would be able to just put my PTU right on this transmission, but I can't because it's not. So that's a bummer. But before I swap the transmission over, the four-wheel drive one, I have a couple bolts I need to remove. You can see here that one of the studs broke for the exhaust manifold, and on the other side, this one broke. So I gotta get both of those pulled out first. That's what I'll be working on tonight. And I've got the stove going again because it is only about 15 Fahrenheit outside, so it's a little bit chilly. I'm going to be wearing my big jacket for a while till it warms up in here. So let's see if we can't get those bolts out. Alright, so I'm going to work on getting these broken exhaust manifold studs out. And to do that, I've got a drill bit kit here. You can see that the drill bits are actually reversed. So the drill spins backwards, and you know, sometimes the drill bit will actually catch enough on the stud where it will start to unwind it because you're drilling backwards. But if not, then there's also a number of extractors in there where you can essentially pound those into a hole that you drill in the bolt, and hopefully those would extract it if it doesn't just spin out on its own. So let's drill some of these out, and hopefully it's not too much of a nightmare. Hey everyone, wanted to give you a quick update here. My engine is just about back together, and not that I had it that far apart, but doing some repairs on it. But almost have the engine back together. Then I can clamp the transmission and bolt it onto here. But a few things that I did, one of them is that on the, so the water pump is actually in the back of the engine here. And there's a seal where it's driven by the camshaft. That seal is leaking oil pretty good, so I had to pull this pulley off and replace that bearing. So I got that done. Then, as you saw, I also had to drill out a couple exhaust manifold studs. So I got those out. Except for this one right here. That one, I couldn't get the stud out with an easy out. So I ended up drilling that oversized, drilled a 5/16 hole, then tapped it out to a 3/8/16 thread, and it actually turned out pretty good. I'm happy with that. So I'll be able to just put a bolt in that one, and I can get I'll put this exhaust manifold on. This is the front one. I want to put it in the car with the front one on. I'll leave the rear manifold off, although I got all those studs out, put new studs in, so that one's ready to slide a manifold onto once it's in the car. But I do need the rear manifold off so I can get the all-wheel drive PTU onto the transmission. Then the exhaust manifold goes back on. So right now I just have the valve cover off. Just put a new gasket on that, so I got to put some RTV on a couple seams on the head, put that valve cover back on, then I can put the exhaust manifold back on, and at that point I think it's ready for the transmission to mate up to it. I just need to clean up the transmission, then the transmission can go on here. And from that point, it's basically just putting some coolant hoses back on the assembly, making sure that the wire harness is routed properly to drop it back in. Then the transmission and engine can go back in the car together. So making progress here. I'm finally at a place where I'm no longer taking pieces off and fixing things, but actually putting it back together. So that's pretty exciting. So I get back to work on all that.